Hey guys, how's it going? This is Tim here, and I'm here today with another special guest. Today's guest is Brendan.
Hey.
Yeah, and also just to kind of follow up on the thing I was talking about yesterday, I kind of said that, after I've been fired and I was thinking now that I have some more free time, I was thinking about maybe taking a bike trip somewhere, and you know what? I decided, screw it, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to take a bike trip. It'll be some nice visual variety for these tier lists. And I'm going to go to Odawara, which is a beautiful little city that's maybe about a day-long bike trip away from where I live in Yokohama. And it'll be just nice to, relax, kind of think about the future. And there's like a place you can go called an onsen, which is it's like a hot spring. And I love castles. They have a beautiful castle there, so it'll be nice to, I think, take a bike trip there. And I'm gonna leave tomorrow.
So is this going to be like a family vacation thing?
I thought about that, but my daughter, she's like 3, and my wife, I don't think she's so interested in castles and the long distance biking. So I think it'll just be a solo trip, and it'll be a nice little me time.
What are they going to do while you're gone?
It's a little bit selfish, okay? But I'm hurting right now, and I just...
Wait, but this timing though, didn't you say like it would have been better to do this like a week from now when they're gone? They're like going to Hokkaido, you said?
You know what? It'll just be for a few days, right? One day to travel, one day there, one day to come back. So I think it'll be fine, and then I'll come back. They'll be here, and it'll be all good. So,
All right.
But anyway, today we are going to be looking at a very interesting topic. This is Tarantino movies. Now, when somebody brings up the idea of talking about Tarantino, or if somebody says, "Oh yeah, I love Tarantino. He's my favorite director," that instantly paints a picture of that person, I think, as someone who is not cultured in films, blah blah blah. As kind of a dude bro at college with the Pulp Fiction poster in his, above his bed and all that. So, it's a tough topic to talk about, I think. But you know what? At the end of the day, there's a reason why he's popular. There's a reason why he's successful. It's because he has brilliant scripts. He puts out great movies with thoughtful dialogue, and I think he's great. And I'd like to talk about some of his movies.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so his first movie, now he's done quote-unquote 9 movies, and he said he's going to stop at 10. And he considers Kill Bill 1 and 2 to be one movie, essentially, so that's how he looks at it, so we're going to look at it we're going to judge it as one movie as well. But first one he ever did was Reservoir Dogs. This movie I've actually seen a few times, and it almost kind of reminds me of like a stage play. Like, I feel like you could very easily adapt it to like a small theater.
So much of it just takes place in that warehouse.
Yeah. You could do a couple scenes in like a flashback as like a, bring in a car from off stage,
Right.
put the car in the center of the room, and there's your flashback scene.
That.
Yeah,
Just
I think
stage it.
I think you could very easily adapt it to like a little community theater. But I think it does so much with so little. I like it a lot. I also like the fact that the reveal of the cop is halfway through.
Spoiler.
Well, I didn't say who it was.
Okay.
It's pretty much established from the beginning that one of them is a rat.
That's true.
But I like the fact that it wasn't like the final moment. I like that they kind of halfway through they have lots of flashbacks of him trying to get into character and him trying to become buddy with people. So I really like that aspect of it, and I think it was said at some point that he kind of sees it as almost like a kind of father-son story. They're not literally father and son, but the character of Mr. Orange and Mr. White kind of have like a father-son dynamic to them.
I get that, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a very humble first project, but it just makes such an impression. It does so much with so little, and I like it a lot. And I would say A.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. Like there's a lot of I like about the movie. It establishes a lot of his signatures, like long scenes of dialogue about just random shit, and like interesting use of music, and also like dramatic irony that kind of creates suspense, right? But I kind of got like irritated with some of these conversations where, Quentin Tarantino is a cool guy, but I feel like in this movie he thought he's even cooler than he is. Like some of the dialogue and just like all this tough guy stuff, all the swearing, it's just like it grated on me a little bit. But yeah, I really like the flashbacks, the cop reveal, and also like that opening diner scene with the tipping conversation is a little bit like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Tarantino kind of does that too. He kind of like a scene will revolve on a little etiquette thing. I love that. Overall, like I don't know whether to give it like a high B or a low A. It shows a lot of promise. It's not as ambitious, obviously, as his other stuff, but it is an extremely strong debut. So I guess we can give it an A.
Okay, let's move on. Let's take a look at Pulp Fiction. Now, when considering this list, I thought a little bit about Pulp Fiction and, what we were talking about earlier with the dorm room poster thing, and just how kind of played out Pulp Fiction is in pop culture. And just, I was like, is there any way that I cannot give this an S? And I hate to say it, but I don't think I can. I think it has to be an S. I mean, it is just so culturally significant, so many iconic scenes, so many great performances. I mean, and I think Samuel L. Jackson in particular is really underrated. I think the fact that Travolta won an Oscar and he didn't is I think it's ridiculous, frankly.
Samuel L. Jackson is electric in that movie.
Yeah. Well, people kind of think of him as this one-note guy where it's like he's the guy who comes in and yells and curses, and I really think that he has a lot of range. I mean,
even in the Tarantino filmography, he does a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best. He's one of the best actors in Tarantino's employ.
Yeah.
But in this one in particular, that whole ending scene where he's just he's trying to redeem himself, and he's talking about his philosophy and all that.
Yeah.
And then he goes from 0 to 100, but it's like, calm down, Yolanda. Like between that and then the calm, it's just excellent.
I think that's what's special about the movie is like, just like elevating the source material, these sort of stock characters, and also it's the first like Tarantino hangout movie. You have these scenes where the plot's not really advancing, but it's just fun. The whole like dance scene, the milkshake, like it's just fun.
I think it has to be an S. Just too many iconic scenes, too many good performances,
very influential.
Too many, yeah. And there's a reason why it's popular. It's because it's good. Okay, so next we come to Jackie Brown. And Jackie Brown, I put off seeing this one for a little while, and not for any reason. I just didn't get around to it. and it might just be recency bias because I did see it kind of recently, but I really loved it. I think it's really underrated, and I think it's very difficult for Tarantino. I think Tarantino was basically put in a difficult position where it's like Pulp Fiction was so iconic even then.
Right. What do you do after that?
Yeah. That it's like, how do you follow that up? And the idea of him going for this, like Jackie Brown is, I don't know if you would agree, but I would say that it's by far his least violent movie. I think, you know, the first big
it's
kill.
It's all about crime, but it's less violent.
Yeah, but it's basically what I was saying to you earlier. It's the whole movie is basically this black lady walking down hallways to funky music. That's basically the movie, but it just works. It's so captivating, like you just can't take your eyes off it. And but no, what I was gonna say is like a lot of the kills, they're very understated. You know, the first kill that kind of with the in the car, that happens way far out. Like it's like a wide shot. You know, I actually had to rewind it because like, wait, did he just kill him? Wait, what just happened? You know, that's never happened to me in a Tarantino experience, right? And then the kill later,
in the parking lot.
Yeah, same thing. You don't even really see the kill happen. It's like they get shot and then he just keeps walking.
Yep.
They, you know, there's no pan over to the dead body. Like they just brush it off as if he shoved her instead of shot her. You know what I mean? So it all feels very, very understated for a Tarantino film particularly. And really all I can say is that I wish he did that more often. I mean, I think we'll get into it later, but I feel like with a lot of his other movies, it feels like he kind of has to take those extreme measures because that's what people expect. Like he put out Jackie Brown, and I think it got a negative reaction at the time because it wasn't Pulp Fiction, because it was very understated. And I think that's a real shame because I think Jackie Brown is really great. And I would hope that for his alleged final movie that he does something similar to it and goes back to something understated.
Yeah, Jackie Brown's neat. You know, the plot's a little twisty, turny. I have to see it again. I only saw it once, but I really like the bail bondsman, the whole relationship between Jackie and that guy. It's
real
so
quick,
tender at the end. That last scene with him.
Yeah, I was shocked when he appeared on screen because I love him from Breaking Bad.
Oh, right.
He's the disappearer guy. And he's one of my favorite characters in that entire show, and he's in a little bit in Better Call Saul as well. But he's such a great character. I've watched that scene where he like takes the passport pictures or whatever, the ID pictures. Like, I love those scenes. He's so great. And in this movie, he plays kind of a similar role, where it's like that. He's like, I'm just kind of this guy in the office, and I'm here to help you out. I
also
so
sort
happy
of
to see
point
it
to
in
the
this.
world of Breaking Bad, that the scene, like the stuff when they're kind of like setting up the stuff in the mall, like the heist, but like the you know, it kind of reminded me, and obviously this would have been, it would have influenced this because it came much later, but like in Better Call Saul in the last season, the whole like mall, like crime setup, you know, I kind of thought about that when I saw it, but
yeah, the black and white bit at the very end.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good point. Yeah.
Also, it's interesting because in Reservoir Dogs, in that opening scene, they're talking about like, oh, who's that actress? Oh, Pam Grier, right? And then Pam Grier is like Jackie Brown.
Right.
So Tarantino wanted to like use her. She had been in a bunch of like kind of blaxploitation movies in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah, after watching Jackie Brown, I saw some clips of those, and they're pretty hilarious, honestly. Like, she'll be like, "Death's too good for you, bitch!" Boom, you know, like She plays kind of a completely different character.
Yeah.
But I think also in Jackie Brown, she's very nowadays people talk about like, oh, where's all the women characters and whatever. And whenever people bring that up, it's always the same like two films. It's like, well, what about Alien? What about Terminator? Like those are the only two movies anybody ever comes up with. Because it's true. I mean, there really aren't that many female protagonists, and I feel like a lot of times when you do a female protagonist, it does feel a little bit, I don't know. Like to me, like a good female protagonist is when their femininity plays a role in their character, Like I feel like a female protagonist who's literally like just James Bond or something, where it's like girls can kick ass too. Like I'm not a fan of that type of stuff because it's like, any character that can just be a guy, it's like it feels like it feels like the writer just wrote a guy and then put a girl in there. With Jackie Brown
she
feels like
outsmarts people. She holds her own, like
yeah. She feels like a real person that's just in this situation. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that women do have some disadvantages compared to men. Like men can overpower women, and that is really scary. And I really like that they kind of used that in this movie, like the scene where it was like Sam Jackson and her. And he kept like turning the lights off. It was like earlier in the movie. She like kept trying to turn them back on. He kept trying to turn them back off. That scene was like, it made me nervous. I was like, oh my God, he's gonna strangle her. And then when it was revealed, that like split screen reveal where the guy opens the glove compartment and the gun is missing, and then she like turns the tables and it's like, she's like, back up, like. That's an amazing moment.
Badass.
Yeah. So, this to me is like a great. She's not a great female character. She's a great character, and they all are. I loved all the characters in this, and
Robert De Niro is so funny as the stoner guy.
yeah, he's great. What's his name? The Michael Keaton character is great.
Oh, that's right. He's in it too.
Yeah. A lot of great performances in this, and extremely underrated movie. And I think I just didn't get around to watching it because nobody talks about it. And I'm so glad I did because it's great. And I would give it an S. And I think I got to put it behind Pulp Fiction because of how iconic Pulp Fiction is. But I don't know. And again, it might be recency bias, but
yeah, I give it an A. Like, I think it's extremely strong, but I don't know about S.
I love all the individual performances, and I love the fact that Tarantino isn't afraid to be understated.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's valid.
No real reliance on violence in this movie, I think makes it stand out a lot. And I hope that he does that again. Okay,
next,
let's look at Kill Bill 1 and 2. So we're going to be looking at these as one super long movie. But, I mean, let's not take length as a factor. Because you can watch it as a double feature. You can watch half of it and then go have lunch and then watch the other half. Kill Bill, I don't know. I think a lot of people like Kill Bill, but for me, it feels. I don't like Uma Thurman. That's her name, right? No. Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a very natural actor, and maybe in this, it's intentionally supposed to be kind of campy and hammy. I know that it is kind of like meant to be a more kind of surreal universe, like kind of like a movie within a movie type idea. But I just don't really like her acting. I think basically everybody else is better than her, and when you spend so much time with her, that's a problem. But all of the I don't know what the name of the team is called, like the snake team.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I think okay. Here's what I'll say. I think there's a lot of great set pieces. I love the fight in the kitchen with the cereal and everything.
Yeah.
That's
great.
Major, very, very memorable. Lots of memorable sequences, basically. But again, I think that's to the strength of whoever the black actress is. I don't know her name.
I think that's Vivica A. Fox.
But I thought she was very great, very strong. And then you look at the other performances. The Asian chick, what's her name? Lucy Liu.
Mm-hmm.
She was excellent. And that was another issue. You know, I know some Japanese, and hearing Uma Thurman speak Japanese in this movie was so cringe. She was like, "Watashi wa," you know, like,
Yeah.
if there was any intimidation going on, you just threw it all in the dumpster by talking. That's basically how I felt. So I think basically there are so many strong fight sequences, and who's the guy who plays the guy who's in the trailer? He was also in Reservoir Dogs. The guy who cuts off the ear.
Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was excellent in this. He might be my favorite actor in the movie. That whole speech that he has, like, you know,
wakey wakey, eggs and bakey.
No. The part, yeah, sure, but the part where he's like, you know, she deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die. Like,
it's a good voice.
It's just like, I love his character, where he's kind of apathetic about the whole situation, but then at the same time he's the only one who actually kind of defeats her. If he had actually just killed her, then everybody but he decides to go over the top. But yeah, I think it's solid, but it's not my favorite. And I think Uma Thurman's performance drags it down for me. I just don't like her very much. I thought she was pretty good in Pulp Fiction. She wasn't my favorite character in that either, though, honestly. She was like fair enough. But then, like, the idea of taking her and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna give you a movie. I don't know. So I would give 1 and 2 a B.
I give it a B for different reasons. I think it's just like, if Tarantino really wanted this to be considered one movie, one saga, like, you know, the whole fight with like the snake gang and then Lucy Liu at the end of Volume 1 is like such a peak and so stylish and like big. But then like nothing like that ever happens in Volume 2. It's like this very kind of more sedate, you know, there's still violence, but it's like it's more crafty and like up close, and it kind of becomes like almost elegiac by the end, you know? So it's like a weird sort of lopsided saga, I guess. Like he's kind of setting up this like feeling of like anime and manga influence and kung fu, and then like the second movie is just quieter, you know? So that's why I give it a B.
I mean, it kind of subverts expectations in a way, because like, yeah, you expect another kind of like dynamite, multi-person insane fight sequence like there was.
Just running out of people to kill, so.
Yeah, I actually, I think it is disappointing that there isn't, but it's like going back and rewatching it, knowing that there isn't, I think it's not a problem. Because
I should try to watch them as a double feature sometime and see how that goes.
Yeah, I also watched them separately as well. But you know, it's like the fact that each member of the group, each member's fight feels so different. You know, the trailer with the shotgun.
The Scorpion.
Yeah. The kid.
Or the Black Mamba, sorry.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, there's two moments with the trailer. Yeah, that's right. I was thinking about the one at night where she kind of like tries to sneak into his house. She opens the door and then she just gets shot.
Right.
That's what I was. But yeah, also that one as well where he gets wrecked by the nurse lady. I really gotta learn the names of these characters if I'm going to be talking about this. But
That's okay.
But
yeah.
But I like the fact that each one is unique. I mean, you know, if there was a second fight, just for example, using the black chick, right? If there was a second fight in a kitchen with Michael Madsen's character, obviously it would make that fight not as impactful, and also it would make the first fight less impactful because they're kind of cannibalizing each other, right? So the fact that the Lucy Liu one stands on its own and there's no other fight like that strengthens it, and it strengthens the other fights because it makes them all feel unique.
That is interesting. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
But I just don't like Uma Thurman, so B. All right, let's look at Death Proof. Death Proof is also a kind of double feature situation. It was part of
Grindhouse.
Yeah. And the first part was Planet Terror. I was about to say Planet Fitness. Yeah, I mean, we watched this together, and
I think we both fell asleep.
Yeah, we fell asleep. So, C.
Me too.
Someday
I'll watch it again. It was just too slow, and
yeah, it was just like Jackie Brown. The characters were interesting. I'm comparing it to Jackie Brown because Jackie Brown is also pretty slow.
Yeah.
But it feels like immediately there are stakes with Jackie Brown because she gets arrested in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then also the whole thing with Sam Jackson's character, where it's like, oh my god, like he instantly becomes threatening, where it's like, oh man, he's just gonna kill whoever, you know.
Yeah.
Death Proof, I just found it hard to care. And then on top of that, because also Planet Terror was also just kind of okay.
It was fun, but
it was good. It was pretty good, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. Like, just to compare it, you know, I've seen Kill Bill once, and I remember so many things from that.
Yeah.
I've seen Planet Terror once. I couldn't tell you anything about it, except that it was by the guy who did Spy Kids. So, I mean,
you remember like the machine gun on the amputated leg, right?
Yeah, I remember something like that. I thought it was like an arm.
No, like
her
leg
okay.
Is she just puts a gun on her leg and like spins around.
Right. Okay, I do remember that. But I couldn't tell you who they were fighting. I couldn't tell you what they were doing. I couldn't tell you anything.
It's like sort of a zombie thing, right?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds about right. But anyway, to come off of that and then go into Death Proof, and Death Proof just starts out so slowly. I think maybe if it was, I don't know. I guess I should give it another chance at some point, but
I should too.
Because it's meant to be part of a double feature, I think it's fair that it should be judged as part of the double feature. It wasn't meant to be watched by itself. Am I wrong?
Well, but he's still kind of, you know, wants to have his little opus of like, this is the sixth film or whatever number film by Quentin Tarantino.
No.
I don't know if he labeled it that way.
But what I mean is like, if I was to give Death Proof another chance, I feel like it wouldn't be in the spirit to watch it by itself. I feel like it's meant to be watched with Planet Terror. I don't know. Who cares? I'd give it a C. Let's just move on. So next is Inglorious Bastards.
This is gonna be S tier for me. I mean, it's so like dense, and there's so much suspense. Like it's such a good suspense thriller, and like the use of like language, like that's such an important part of the plot. Like,
Yeah.
the different languages of World War II, and the performances are good. There's so many funny kind of like dramatic irony moments, like when the guys are trying to like infiltrate the premiere and pretend they're Italian, and Brad Pitt is like,
Mm-hmm.
Arrivederci, and you're just like, oh, they're so screwed.
Yeah.
You know, the whole scene in like that basement tavern, like there's so many good scenes, and cinematography is amazing. Yeah, it's just incredible. It like sometimes it doesn't even feel like a Tarantino film. It feels like a genuine like war thriller, and of course Christoph Waltz is like amazing too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like one of my favorites ever. Like S tier for me.
You think it's like your number one Tarantino film?
That and Django are up there, but I think this one edges out slightly.
I don't know. I feel like I might be alone in this, but I thought of course it's great, but it doesn't quite ascend to S for me. And I can't really quite place why. Like, I think part of it has to do with Brad Pitt and BJ Novak. Because like the whole Bastards crew, like I'm not super hardcore into the kind of film underground, so like all of those guys pretty much felt like unknowns to me, at least at the time. Of course now they've gone on to do other things, but you know, at the time it was like BJ Novak is like essentially a writer, not an actor, you know.
Well, Eli Roth is like a director more than an actor too.
Sure. But you know, The Office was like one of the hottest shows at the time. So to see him, there was what do you call it? Like a disconnect?
Sure.
Suspension of belief disconnect there, where it's like, what is Ryan from The Office doing in this battlefield ripping scalps off of Nazis?
Yeah.
You know, and I felt the same way about Brad Pitt, frankly, because you look at all the other actors in the movie generally felt like unknowns to me. I mean, Michael Fassbender, I guess you could consider. I mean, there's Mike Myers, who was in it actually, but he plays a cameo and he's wearing so much makeup you like barely know. You don't even know it's him really.
Christoph Waltz was kind of unknown to American audiences before that movie.
Yeah. So, and then with Fassbender, I feel like nowadays he's huge, but I think at the time he hadn't done as much, or I wasn't aware of him. But Brad Pitt is like this. It felt like the proportion of star power was out of whack, and that took me out of the film. You know, you compare it to something like Hateful Eight, where it feels like every member of the cast pretty much is like that same level of like star power. With this, it felt like Brad Pitt was an outlier and BJ Novak was only known for one thing, so he also felt like an outlier.
But see, here's where I think that works to the film's advantage, because if you remember, like, the Americans are kind of hyped up as like this, you know, heroic team, but then like they're pretty useless and they're not even really needed at the end. Like other people kind of accomplish the plot without them, you know. So it's even more like, oh yeah, like Brad Pitt, but then he's just like an idiot.
Yeah, but my point is that like it doesn't matter what they were doing.
Yeah.
It like they could have been, you know, selling Girl Scout cookies, but at the end of the day, one of the Girl Scouts is Brad Pitt, and all the other ones are like unknowns. So to me, it doesn't matter what they were doing. It's like the fact that there was this A-lister, like together with a bunch of unknowns, took me out of the movie.
Okay.
I think Brad Pitt is actually is an excellent actor, and I think that kind of feeling faded away as the thing went on. But I don't know. So And, you know, it's not Brad Pitt's fault that he's successful. You know what I mean? But that's just how it felt to me.
Sure.
Obviously, okay. So then we'll come to the ending where they like massacre everybody. And on a second rewatch, I liked it more, I think. But my first impression, I was like, I wasn't shocked. I was just, or like, I didn't feel like elation even. I was just like confused. I was like, wait, is this like a dream sequence? Like, what's going on? What, like until the credits rolled, and then I was like, oh, so that all happened. Like they ended the war. So like, I don't know. I think
it is weird in a way.
I don't know.
Yeah, like so much of the movie is very realistic, and then it kind of
Right.
ends in this sort of like fantasy alternate history thing.
Yeah.
It's like Tarantino saying like, you want to see these bad guys get wrecked, and then
Yeah, and again, it's like on a second watch, like when you know that that's coming, it's fine. It totally works.
Yeah.
But like
it's very jarring the first time.
Yeah, on a first impression, I found it to be extremely jarring because of how realistic it is. And I think it undermined some of those earlier scenes for me. Like, especially the one in the very beginning where, you are holding, you have Jews, do you not?
Right. Yeah.
Like that thing where the Jews are hiding under the floorboards or whatever. That was like dripping with tension. That was that might be like the best scene he's ever done, like top 3 or something.
And again, the use of the language and like
I love that. Where they switch languages to hide so that they don't know what they're talking about. Oh my god, incredible stuff, and it just felt so real, and you just you feel for these Jews. You don't want So then,
and the poor farmer having to give up his friends. Like,
totally, yeah. I mean, and it does so much work to like establish who is good, who is bad, like give a reason to really hate this guy,
and just how ruthless and like efficient at his job Hans Landa is.
Right, yeah.
It's just like, wow.
And
so every time he shows up, you're just like, oh gosh, like you just feel like he's gonna get the upper hand in every situation.
Yeah, and I mean that's why I don't like the ending, because it takes this ultra realistic, like it feels like this is something that could have really happened to many people, and taking that and then like putting it in the same movie as this like completely goofy, like practically like Deus Ex not Deus Ex, just
Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina ending, where like if Landa had not agreed to help the bastards, then essentially their whole I mean, he basically says it himself. He's like, without his help, the whole plan would be shot. So, like you said, the bastards basically didn't do anything. It was all Landa. So basically, if Landa didn't exist, their plan would have failed. So
interesting.
Because it's like he says, like he needs their help to get it done.
But like, remember who like the projectionist lady starts the fire, or with the help of her friend or her lover, and
no, but the point is that Landa is aware of the plan, so all he has to do is just like tell everybody, like, hey, everybody evacuate.
Right.
So I don't know. I still in a way I don't really like the ending very much. Just because I think it, like, they should have done more to set up the fact that it's like an alternate universe. Like if they had done more things earlier on that made it clear, like, oh, this isn't how history actually went, then the
That's a
ending
good point.
would have it would have prepared me better for the ending. But instead, it's like this ultra realistic thing that like comes like, especially like, what was the scene right before that? It was the one at the bar where it was like they used the thing with the 3 fingers.
Yeah.
You know, that is a super ultra realistic, like just they're having a conversation and then there's like one little tell, and like putting that scene and then right after that having this super like over the top thing that is in a lot of like the way Hitler gets like completely mutilated, like it's kind of goofy, and in a way it just tonally it felt a little bit of a clash to me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think S is fair. I don't know where I would put it in S though.
We have to remember there's the whole, like, cinema itself is a theme in this movie, right? Because there's like the actor who, you know, or he was like a soldier who killed like a zillion million people, and he like gets this movie made about him. And then like there's like the whole idea that they're in this theater getting burned up. So it's like this idea of like the theater as like a place of projecting dreams and fantasies. I think that's where that kind of comes from. This is Tarantino's fantasy of like, you know, kind of his revenge on Hitler through making this alternate history movie. I don't know. It's probably we've probably said enough about this. So.
That's fair though. The idea of cinema being like a kind of meta element.
Yeah.
Like he's using cinema to get revenge on the Nazis, but also within the story, the actual cinema itself is killing the Nazis because they're stuck in there. That's okay. I didn't consider that. That's okay. I think I would go S, and I would put it above Jackie Brown, but below Pulp Fiction.
Fair.
Although people who put it as their number one, I'm not going to blame you. But just for me, on my first watch, it just I had issues with it, and then watching it again, I think it was better the second time. And a lot of those individual scenes are just as iconic as some of the Pulp Fiction stuff. Okay, so now we come to Django Unchained. Django to me is an A. I would put it at the top of A. I think my critique with it is that it feels like it goes on a little bit too long. I feel like you're kind of ready for it to end around the end of the Candy situation, right when Candy dies. And it feels like the movie should be wrapping up around then. But then, you know, he gets captured again, and then he has to deal with the Australians, and then he has to come back.
Right, and why Quentin Tarantino playing him like this Australian guy is so cringe.
Yeah,
like,
that
totally took me out of the movie.
Yeah. Talk about taking out of the movie. Yeah. Why doesn't he cast himself instead of Brad Pitt for Inglorious Bastards? Yeah, totally takes you out of the movie for sure. He's got to stop doing that. Even though, I don't know, whatever. But
I mean, I think Django has like a great plot. Like the story just barrels along. Like you always know what the goal is, and that whole like progression at the Candy house, from like the dinner to the like shaking the hand and the shootout, like it's an amazing like sequence. And yeah, very memorable. Yeah, I really like Django Unchained. It's like, it is weird to see Christoph Waltz playing like a good guy back to back, and he won an Oscar for both of those performances. But there's a lot of style. Jamie Foxx is great. Love his costumes.
Jamie Foxx, by the way, is hilarious. I don't know if I showed you like an interview with
The
him.
D is silent.
Where he like does an imitation of Tarantino.
No.
Oh my gosh. I'll show a clip of that.
The first day of rehearsal, I'm reading my lines like, yeah, and he said, cut. Could I talk to you for a second? Close the door. What the fuck is that? I said, what you mean? I knew I was going to have this problem. Listen, all of this shit, you have to be a fucking slave, okay? He's a slave. He's not cool. He's a fucking slave.
Right.
He doesn't know how to read. You come in with your fucking Louis bag and your fucking Range Rover and your fucking Jess. I'm so fucking, you're not Jim Brown. He's a fucking slave. And then he becomes the hero. But lose that shit. Door swings open, he walks out.
Wow. Would you work with Quentin Tarantino again, or is it just too goddamn...
1,000 times.
Oh, you would?
Yeah, Jamie Foxx is just hilarious. I really like him, and I think he's a great actor. And I think Waltz, I like the back-to-back thing, because he is so
I want to see more of it. He's so
hardcore.
good.
Yeah, totally. But he is so hardcore in Inglorious Bastards, and then to come and do this kind of role, I think it's great to just see the range that he has. Really, my only critique is that like the whole German thing. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm German, so I enjoy seeing Germans being portrayed positively after them getting completely wrecked, rightfully so, in Inglorious Bastards. But I do feel like the portrayal in Django Unchained, it felt a little bit kind of shoehorned in. Like it felt like the
wife Brunhilde, the way she like learns German, that's like so far fetched.
Yeah, well, yeah. It just feels it feels shoehorned in. To me, it feels like Tarantino liked Waltz so much that he literally wrote an entire character based around the fact that Waltz can speak German and English.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think in a lot of, I think for me, that's one of the weaker aspects actually is
because like Michael Fassbender can do that, but with less of an accent, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he liked Waltz. He wanted to do another project with him. And so he wrote a character that made sense for that. And that's totally fair. But to me, it just felt a little bit too obvious. Like that was kind of shoehorned in. But I don't know. In a lot of ways, it also made the film feel more unique, I think. You know, we've seen our fair portrayal of slaves, and I think that this was a totally new twist on it, you know? The idea of bounty hunting and the idea of, I love that scene where he shoots the sheriff, and then they go.
I like how you die, boy.
Yeah. Well, when he gets the marshal,
Oh yeah.
Now you can get the marshal, you know.
Right.
That whole sequence when they're kind of sitting and drinking beer at.
Yeah, I love that. Like, can we talk about how Tarantino always makes food and drink look so good? Like the strudel and Inglorious Bastards and the beer.
Yeah.
Django.
I just love that scene as kind of like it's almost like an ASMR scene. He takes the beer stick and he's like, schlip, schlip.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's also just like a great show of like respecting this guy's dignity. He's like, hey, let's have a beer. But one thing I was thinking about with this movie too is like this and Inglorious Bastards kind of go together because they're both like these like against these kind of iconic enemies like the Nazis and Ku Klux Klan and white supremacists.
Yeah.
And they both get wrecked. And so I think it's like Tarantino just wanting to kind of indulge these like violent revenge fantasies. So it's interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, not even just revenge, but just the idea of making them kind of goofy.
Right, like when
Like-
they forget like the capes or like have the
Like-
eyeballs in the wrong.
Just kind of removing their power by making them seem like incompetent and silly. Because they do that in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well, which we'll get to later. But with the Manson group, how they're all just kind of idiots. Same thing here, you know, these guys. The whole thing with the hoods. Anyway, maybe I would give it an S. I don't know.
It's hard. So many of these movies are so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
Um,
choosing which child to shoot. Frankly,
Yeah.
I would say top of A.
Okay.
Okay, let's get into the Hateful Eight. So, Hateful Eight, I think it was okay. I don't regret seeing it, but it's not my favorite. It's similar to Reservoir Dogs in a way because it also feels kind of like a stage play. I would say even more. I would say even more so. It feels
It's
like a stage
pretty much
play.
all in that house. Yeah.
And even with the acting too, I think what really puts it low for me is the acting. I feel like the majority of the performances are terrible. I don't know if you would agree with me, but I just everybody felt so wooden. Like it not only felt like it could have been a stage play, it felt like the actors were acting as if it was a stage play. Like
A little too over the top.
literally the way they were acting, it's because you know how when you're acting on a stage, you kind of be like, well, I'm gonna go over here to stage left and pick up this
Yeah.
bucket.
Yeah.
You know, that's literally how they were talking.
Mhm.
And it really took me out of it. It took me a while for me to kind of get immersed in it. And just from start to end, it felt like they were on a stage. And even some of the lighting choices, it felt like there were these random spotlights, as if like, okay, it's pitch black in this, it's pitch black in this house. Why is there a single, like, clearly a spotlight, unnatural light pointing to this table or whatever? It felt like it was literally on a stage. So maybe that I mean, I have to assume that was intentional because he's proven to be brilliant, and he's proven to not only be brilliant, but he's proven to have surrounded himself with brilliant people. So if something like this was so jarring, I have to assume it was intentional. I have to assume that it was intentionally made to feel like a stage play, because there's no other reason why you would ever make some of these decisions. So I don't know. It's like maybe it was intentional, but it didn't work for me. It took me out of the movie, and I think I would say C.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about Hateful Eight is just like how disappointing it was, considering like the hype. It's like, oh my gosh, Tarantino's finally making a Western. Like, we know he loves Westerns. He's used Morricone music before in his movies, and like, this is going to be so pure and like amazing. And then, he makes such a big deal about filming it on what it was like 70 millimeter and doing these special screenings. But the whole movie is like in a house, and he hired Morricone to write the music. There's barely any music from what I remember. It just felt like a waste of opportunity. And
Yeah.
like, I just think the movie's kind of mean-spirited. These characters, I mean, they're not supposed to be likable characters, but they're just like not fun to spend all that time with. And by the end, it's just like, okay, yep, about what I expected. Yeah, not a fan. C for me.
Yeah, it's fun to see kind of how it all went down before the, there aren't really any protagonists per se, but you could say that Sam Jackson's coach is filled with the protagonists, and then all the other people who are already there are generally antagonists.
Yeah.
So that whole gang, the bandit gang, whatever, it's kind of fun to see how they took over the house and how it was supposed to be before they got there. But other than that, yeah, I thought it was very over the top, but that it didn't. Just to what end? I don't know. Maybe it's just that I'm getting older and I don't really need to have all the crazy gore and stuff anymore. Like, I think
there could have been so much more interesting examination of the period, and again, like using etiquette and stuff to kind of turn scenes on that, and you know, like have some cool cinematography and just get out, you know, out in the world. But
well, he seems to kind of be on like a little bit of a bounty hunter kick, because he's just coming off of Django, and then this one also, like, all
Inglorious Bastards also kind of bounty hunters.
Yeah, kind of. But then this one, it's like, it's basically you know, it might as well have been Django, like, same exact universe, but just like slightly different time period and slightly different area. But it felt like it took place in that same kind of story world. With this kind of like bounty hunter group, and bounty hunting is so in right now. Everybody's doing it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think like some of the blood and gore stuff, it does work in this movie. Like, it's not excessive just for the sake of it. Like, for example, like I liked the part where she was trying to get the gun at the very end, so she has to cut off the guy's hand. Like, that totally made sense. I like the part where like they took off the blanket of the chair to reveal like a blood stain under the chair.
Forgot about that part.
It was like Sam Jackson was kind of trying to illustrate his point that, and he lifted the blanket off the chair, and there was a blood stain under the blanket, implying that the guy who usually sits in the chair was shot in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there's some clever stuff. Of course, you know, it's good, but just compared to these other movies, it doesn't rise above. So, last movie here. This is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I absolutely love this movie. I think basically all of the negative things that I talked about earlier, I think they work in this movie. Like, for example, I talked about how, you know, Brad Pitt stuck out like a sore thumb in Inglorious Bastards. I think he's excellent in this movie. I don't think he sticks out at all. I think it makes perfect sense, and I think his character's amazing. I think everybody puts in amazing performances, amazing set pieces, and it's very Jackie Brown-esque as well, where it is kind of subdued, and like there's almost no violence at all until the very end, and almost I kind of wish that they didn't have so much violence. I mean, it's the same thing with Inglorious Bastards, where it's like, okay, I know that it's like a revenge fantasy, blah blah blah, but the whole it just feels tonally so completely different from the rest of the movie that I wish they had, like the whole flamethrower thing. Like, for me, it felt just a little bit excessive and goofy, and again, I know it's kind of the point is to give them less power, but I don't know. I would still give it an S, though. I absolutely love this movie. It's my favorite of his in a long time.
I don't like it as much as you do. It's probably like A range for me. I like how much of a hangout movie it is, and I like this sort of like examination of the 60s and just a lot of different things that were going on. I like the whole DiCaprio plot where he's like kind of feeling like he's past his prime and losing his edge as an actor, and he's kind of this old-fashioned movie star, and there's like new people coming along. That whole scene with Bruce Lee is kind of silly. And the whole thing with like the car, when they go to like the Manson's ranch, right? What happens with that again? It's like
So
they
he,
have like a fist fight.
yeah,
Brad Pitt like punches the guy.
it's because he punctured a hole in the guy's car, and then Brad Pitt was like, "This isn't my car. Like, you got to fix it."
That's right.
And then he's like, and then he punches him. Yeah, the car stuff in general, like all those shots of like in any other movie, they would just cut to them at the restaurant, but in this movie, they how many times, like 5 or 6 times, did they like leave that house and then they just drive down that road, down that hill.
Well, that's what keeps it more hangoutish. It's like, all right, going for a drive now.
Yeah.
Because they just look cool.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. There's so many like the period sets and like entire streets that are like have been redressed to look like the period. All these cars and everything. I think it's just the attention to detail is great, and it's not just all for nothing. Like they really they indulge in it. Like compared to something like the Hateful Eight, where again, like you said, with the 70 millimeter, and they just don't do anything with it. With this, it's like they've got these incredible sets, and they actually do stuff with it. They make it all feel totally real. I think like it's a very high effort movie.
Yeah, it's impressive, and I know I keep saying this, but I got to see this one again too. I've literally only seen each of these movies once, except Inglorious Bastards and Django, I think.
You've only seen Pulp Fiction once?
Yeah, just the one time with you.
Wow.
I know. Not a big rewatcher guy. I used to rewatch them when I was a kid. I saw Toy Story 2 like 50 times.
So yeah, I would go S with this, I think. I don't know. I really like it, and I think it's really rewatchable.
Right. Nice.
Cool.
I guess we'll see what happens with his 10th film.
Yeah, apparently apparently that movie critic concept was canceled or something.
Yeah.
But
I'm kind of glad. That might have been a little too meta.
well, I don't
It
even
was
know
also
what it would have
supposed to
been
be sort
about.
of in the 60s. Another movie about movies in the 60s.
Okay. Well, I mean, that would track with kind of what he's been doing, which is like, you know, make a bounty hunter movie. Let's make another bounty hunter movie.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I like, you know, going back to the Jackie Brown concept of like having a more subdued movie that maybe doesn't rely as much on violence, but has, you know, Tarantino isn't just about violence, and I hope that people will accept that. I think for me, it's less about that and more about the great character building and the great dialogue, like
And
that.
those little things that like can turn a whole scene and like create suspense.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. You know, those are the aspects that make a good Tarantino film, not like how they got their head chopped off or whatever.
Right.
That's just that can be a great payoff to some scenes, but it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, you know, there was lots of great tension in Jackie Brown, or even like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where like there were these tension-filled scenes that, you know, ended in a punch, and that was it.
Or when he's like exploring the house, and you just know that like something's wrong, like where the girls are living.
Yeah, I mean that was extreme tension. I thought he was gonna get murdered when I first saw it. I was like, he is really in trouble. So you don't need that over the top violence, and that's kind of what I was looking forward to with this. I mean, I don't think he really talked about what the movie critic would have even been about, but I would imagine that it would have probably leaned toward less violence. So I was looking forward to it in that regard. But I don't know. I think, you know what? If he threw it away, it means that he thought that it wouldn't be good. So, yeah, I totally trust him, and I think that whatever his next movie is going to be just as good as the other 9. I think, you know, all of his stuff is good. I just want to make that clear. Even something like Hateful Eight, you know, I'm not going to turn it off.
You still see the craft, the writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think that speaks to Tarantino's range. You know, you talk about some of these actors like Sam Jackson having range. I think Tarantino has tons of range where it's like, I think The Hateful Eight, even though it has a lot of those hallmarks, and you can definitely tell it's Tarantino because it's like a Tarantino reunion show with all the same actors that he's always been using. But like, other than that, it feels totally different to any of his other movies. And you could say that about a lot of his movies. I think, you know, Kill Bill feels so iconic, but in a lot of ways, it's very unique. Like, he doesn't really go that campy ever again. Maybe some pieces of Django, but like, they all feel really unique. And I think that I can appreciate that. So, great
They're like
filmmaker.
different genre experiments, but always kind of inspired by particular, like, 70s pulpy stuff. You know, these grindhouse films and
Sure.
martial arts and whatever.
Yeah.
Well, not always martial arts, but you know what I mean.
And I think as time goes on with, as, you know, phones become more of a thing, or they have been more of a thing, and just the way technology's been going, I think it's harder and harder to kind of do a period piece. Like, I would imagine Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would have been infinitely easier to do in the 90s than in the, 2019. So,
Yep.
because just, you think about things like payphones not existing, you think about, like, all the LCD screens everywhere now, like, anyway. It's interesting.
It is definitely interesting.
All right. Yeah, good trip down Tarantino Lane.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow, where I'm going to be starting my journey to Odawara. And I'm very excited about that. I think it's going to be a great time. Nice little,
Yeah, man.
3-day little trip. And then I'll be
Have a
back
nice
here.
soak in the onsen.
Yeah, I haven't done an onsen in quite a while. It's going to be nice to be doing that and just relax and reflect and think about kind of my next moves. So, all right. Thanks for doing another one of these with me. I appreciate it. And maybe I'll give you a call on the road. But I'll see you guys tomorrow for another tier list video.